started when the projects in the hubs was implemented. So to basically work with these local communities to implement the semicircular bunds for restoration. And then we, as an interdisciplinary team, so the team working on the water scarcity project, we basically started to reflect about what could be our contribution, how can we support this endeavor. And it was clear from the beginning that we had the role to play in the monitoring, so to check basically whether this intervention is working, what kind of changes we see in the field when we implement these semicircular bunds. And then so we, together with the hub in East Africa, we set up a monitoring plan, basically which includes biodiversity, climate, water, human well-being, so that we can basically observe and monitor the intervention along the way. And one aspect of this monitoring plan is the soil moisture network that has been installed. And with this, we are trying to monitor the hydrology, so what is happening to the water cycle. And the reason why we do this, why soil moisture, is that we have an hypothesis. We think that restoring the land through these bunds is not only about restoring the vegetation, the ecosystem. It's an important part of it. It's often the way we see it. It's about restoring grassland. But there is something additional to that, which is a bit invisible, is that we can also restore the hydrology, the hydrological cycle of the landscape. And because water is particularly critical in these landscapes, it really determines life for the animals, for humans. This is really a central aspect. And if we can, through this intervention, not only restore vegetation, but also restore the hydrology so that there is more water available in this landscape, this will have far-reaching consequences for life, both animal and humans. When there is more vegetation and also through the bunds themselves, there is more infiltration. So there is more water that will enter the soil. Currently, the soil are very dry in these areas. And if more water stays in the soil, then it means there is also more water available for plants. And this water is then transpired by the plants, so it will also refill the atmosphere with water. So potentially there will be more water recycling, so more rain, or at least the rainfall pattern might be changed. So these are all these aspects that we are trying to monitor. And based on the first measurements that we have, we actually do see that soil moisture is increasing after the bunds have been dug. So if this hypothesis is true and we can verify it, that the hydrological cycle has changed and that potentially there is more water available, then it has very important implication, because it means this restoration effort is not only something that helps very locally to get more grass for livestock, for instance, but because it can change precipitation pattern, or because it can retain more water in these landscapes, then it provides a potential for upscaling. So it can be like a tipping point where we would see that the influence of this particular intervention could basically reach a bigger area where we would see positive impact, and which would also strengthen the adoption of these kind of practices. So the collection of this soil moisture data, it started with the installation of the soil moisture sensors, which was led by the team on ICT for Nature. So they have installed sensors on the ground. So before installing the sensor, we had, of course, to think where to install them. And it's clear that some of them have to be installed directly in the bunds, and some of them also have to be installed outside, so that we have a reference point that we can compare. So when we use the randomization technique to determine the position of each sensors, both outside and inside the bunds, so that we can then compare the effect and determine what is the influence of these bunds on the hydrology and soil moisture.
We are here in Laikipia in the Semicircular bunds incubator, and the innovative technology for nature and people team consists of Dominik Simacek and myself, and we both have a background in the private sector, coming from the software development. We have extensive knowledge in project management, business process optimization, and technology. The main goal of our team is to support the hub and the research teams in their decision making related to project processes and project implementation, with applying technology and gathering the data necessary for their tasks. So the monitoring setup here in the semicircular bunds is a multi-level monitoring system. It starts from below the ground, where we get measurements as temperature and moisture, and then we go above ground and even up into the sky, where we get satellite imagery, so that we really get a holistic view of the impact of the incubator. They found the bund to place the sensor. Let's stop talking and let's start digging. Did you find it?
Yeah.
Perfect. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
The shovels.
Good.
Good.
98% done. What remaining?
Nice.
Then we're done.
Nice. Perfect. Okay, we are at a freshly dug semicircular bunds, and we're going to install a sensor here. What we need to do is, in the center of the semicircular bunds, we need to have about 15 centimeter deep hole to place the sensor in. Afterwards, we will use this steel rod, to create a hole with the same diameter as the sensor, and make a specific hole here up to there to then put the sensor in. And we then need to dig a canal out here, and then a deeper hole here as well, 15 centimeters, to place the communication module of the sensor. So this is the sensor here, and as you see, it's the same diameter, so we can then slide this into the hole that we made before. And in here is the communication module, which will then be placed in the hole outside of the bund. And this will all then be covered again by 10 centimeters of soil, so it's completely invisible and protected from wildlife and human interference. So now that we have the sensors in the ground, they deliver data, and we can directly access it on the Decent Lab platform and the Explore.land platform, where they now stream data every 5 minutes. And so we have moisture and temperature levels in from the soil directly accessible everywhere. The target groups for this data are, on one side, internal people, so the East Africa hub, as well as our research teams that are interested. And on the outside, it's on one side, it's the partners that we have in the landscape, as well as partners that do similar projects, regreening projects in semi-arid or arid landscapes. And then there's a really important part, the communities that we can show the data to, and that we can hopefully support in scaling up this method of regreening across their landscapes.
Marie-Estelle Demory. We are here at the Vis Academy headquarters in Bern. And so as you can see on the screen here, we have installed the soil sensors in Kenya, in an arid and semi-arid landscapes in Kenya. And if I zoom in to the area, so you can see on this satellite picture, which has a very high resolution, you can distinguish here on the screen the semicircular bunds, which are here. So we have installed soil sensors in some of these bunds. And so this is an example of where we go to this server, so which is called the Descent Lab. We have a bunch of results corresponding to various variables that the sensors are collecting, as well as various locations. So what we do then here in Bern is to run a script that will be able to select exactly what variable we want, such as this one that we can see here on the right, where we can really look precisely at precipitation events that we want to look at, the amount of precipitation that the area is receiving. And then we can see soil moisture, which is collected by the soil sensors every 10 centimeter depth. And so what we can see here is that semicircular bunds are able to capture the rainwater. It gives time for the water to infiltrate into the soil. And that's what we can see here with an increase in soil moisture at the location of the soil sensors. And the water is also able then to percolate through the layers, so 20 centimeters, then we can also see an increase in soil moisture, and 60 centimeters as well. However, if you check the red color, so that's the location of the soil sensor in a location where there is no bund, then you can see that when it rains, the soil moisture increases, but not as much as inside a bund. However, it's a bit more difficult for the water to percolate through the layer, and it doesn't even reach the 60 centimeter depth. So it means that the soil is just too dry for the water to be able to percolate through the layers. So when we have such kind of analysis, then we can really understand whether the semicircular bunds are indeed working, whether they are able to increase soil moisture. And this is exactly what we are looking for. When we will have more data, we will be able to run some statistics as well to see whether for each precipitation event, the semicircular bunds are indeed increasing the soil moisture in the area, and particularly during drought events. Does the soil remain still wetter due to the presence of the semicircular bunds, or does it become really dry again and back to its arid state? So here in Bern, we focus on the scientific part. We do the analysis, we build the figures, and then after that we send the figures back to our partners, but also to the hub. We put these figures into a poster that then is going to be communicated to the local communities by our colleague Alex Kimiri, who is working in the hub East Africa and who is directly linked to the local communities over there. We are partnering also with Open Forest to put our result on a platform which is called explorer.land, which is publicly available, and where we can also put our soil sensors results as well, to build some simple graph that we can communicate to people, to the public, but also to the local communities that live in this area. And this is very important for us to show that what we do over there in this area has a direct impact for them.
So I would say that traditional knowledge and science can complement each other. And for instance, the bunds, it's something that is not new. It originates from traditional knowledge. It has been done for centuries, particularly in the Sahel, where it's sometimes also called the half moons. So it's a water harvesting technique that has been around since a long time. So that's not science which invented the bunds. But science can play a role there and contribute in the sense that so far we have no data or evidence about the effectiveness of some of these techniques. And in particular in Kenya, we have had some first implementation by Just Dig It. So we know that it has been done and it can work in terms of providing more vegetation. But there was no exhaustive monitoring that has been done, and that's what science can do, to basically monitor this effort, this intervention, and help to actually design it better or understand also the processes, how they function, and how this can be optimized to bring the most benefit. And finally, I think that what would be really nice is that it could be a project that demonstrates the Vis Academy approach in different dimensions. First, because it's really a collaboration between science and action, and we have local communities involved in actually leading these efforts, while science is providing information that can help these communities to monitor the action, to improve it. That's one aspect, and the other aspect is that it could also align this effort to our mission if we indeed see that there is a benefit both for nature and human well-being through this enhancement of the hydrological cycle. So that could be also a very important gain for the Vis Academy.